Okay guys, this is our wall pack section. These are basically what's called a wall pack. This is what we hang on the side of buildings and basically everywhere. Okay, the wall pack opens up, the lid comes off like this. If you look inside the wall pack right here, it's going to give you all the information. This is a metal halide wall pack, 250 watts. See, it's the ballast type, everything inside it. Okay, operating amps and voltage, yada yada. And I'm pretty sure this is a pulse start. You see how it says 250 PSQ? That means it's a pulse start. So I cannot use a normal 250 watt metal halide bulb in there. I have to use what's called a pulse start bulb, which the pulse start bulb, when you look at it, you would never know, looks just like a regular metal halide bulb. But there is a difference in it. It will not work. Okay, so my drink. 1 second. So what we're going to do inside these is we're going to learn how to turn around and redo these. Inside all these is what's called a ballast kit. This is our ballast kit. This is our capacitor or igniter, depending on what type of fixture you have. Some metal halides have igniters, but most of them just have a capacitor built into them. Okay, so we're going to turn around to tear this out. This is something you will be tested on too when we get a chance to. I want to see you guys basically tear this fixture out and rebuild it completely. There's the ballast. Here's our igniter. Here's our igniter. This kit comes out completely. See, this is an IGNZ igniter. This is for a pulse start metal halide. See, normally these aren't in a normal metal halide ballast. That is the difference. This one has a capacitor too, also installed down underneath. It has a capacitor built into it too. Now, all high pressure sodiums have igniters. Okay, metal halides, only half of them have igniters. I don't know. It's kind of weird the way it works. So, depending on what type of metal halide kit it is, it turns around, you're going to have it. So let's say if we want to make this fixture the same size watt with high pressure sodium, we could take this high pressure sodium ballast. This is a 250 watt high pressure sodium lamp. It's the same thing. You can turn around, put this fixture in here, put him in, again, igniter, capacitor, and igniter. Now the difference is you're going to need to learn how to read all these leads and this wiring diagram to show exactly how this fixture hooks up. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go 120 volts, since that's what we're using. So we have to find our 120 volt lead, which is, this is the lamp lead, so this goes to my lamp. Let's find the 120 volt first. There's our capacitor leads. Okay, so if you look on all these wires, we got cap, capacitor. This one says lamp somewhere. You can barely see it, but it says lamp on it. Then on all of these we have 240, a common. Here's our other common, and we should have that's a common, 208 volt, 120 volt, and there should be a 277 volt somewhere around here too. Common, because this is 277, 240, 208, and 120, and you have to get it exactly right on your voltage coming in, otherwise you will fry your leads on this. Okay, this should be my X3, which it is, X3, that goes to my igniter. So what we would do here is we're going to turn around and figure you got to take your two cap leads. So you got to find your cap and your cap. That's common. Voltage. Cap. Cap. So here's my two cap leads. So I'm taking my two cap leads. Gonna wire into my cap down in here. Here's my other capacitor lead. So there's my capacitors done. Now I still have to hook up my igniter, which here's my igniter. Tighten that down. So here's my igniter right here. Now my igniter, anytime you're going to have your X3 and X3 are going to go together. Then my lamp lead always goes to the red on my igniter. And then it also ties into my lead coming off of my lamp. Okay? So we got to make sure we get all three of those together for it to work properly. Okay. Now my X1 off my igniter is a neutral. I could tie it into my neutral with the lamp and to one of my common leads I have down here. Here's one of my common lead I could use to tie into that. So now most of our wiring's done. Now we just got to work on our voltage. Okay? So you got to figure right here, if I was going to go to like 240 volt, I would go the one to here, one leg to here, and then the other leg I would hook to my other common, believe it or not. You know, you think that it's, even though you're hooking power, but to get 240, you got to go common. One of the hots is always going to be your common on 240 and 208. On 277, this is going to be a neutral. That's the difference. It's the way it works. It's kind of weird, but you got to know. So right here, here's our common. We could hook this to our neutral, and then we would hook, being we're going to hook 120, this would be our two hots. Hot, neutral, and then our ground. Put your lamp in it, it's going to fire up and work. Always make sure all your unused leads are either capped or covered, because these have potential on them coming out. Okay? Okay, stop. Guys, so we tore out our metal halide ballast in there, and we created a 250 watt high pressure sodium fixture with this. We kept the wattage the same, but I'm just trying to teach you guys how a ballast kit works and how you swap them and exchange them out. So we're going to plug this in. Now you see how it comes on. Now anytime you see how our element's lighting, you see the orange color. You know, that's common with high pressure sodium. Anytime all of our HID lighting, they take time to resonate and to get full illumination. You're looking at, I don't know, 5 minutes minimum for it to get its full illumination, okay? Now, anytime you unplug these or lose power and instantly restore power, it will not come back on until at least 10 to 20 minutes, because it has to cool down and restrike. And that's the same with metal halide and high pressure sodium. That won't matter. LED, we lose power, instantly comes back, instant power back on. High pressure sodium, metal halide, you lose power, it's going to take time for it to come back on. Now you can see our light, how we're building our power coming up. You know, it's finally gaining its power. A lot of this technology is not being used on buildings anymore, but basically all the grow ops are still using high pressure sodium and metal halide because somehow the light it doesn't like the other lights. So I want you guys to see when we unplug these, see how the light that goes down. When these have been running for hours, that will be a molten orange. And it's crazy if you unplug this thing after a couple hours, how hot this is. You can't touch this. I can barely touch that. That is hot as can be just after that 4 or 5 minutes this lamp was on. Okay. We're going to take this fixture that we retroed to HID, change it back to its original pulse start form now. Okay, so we're going to take out our ballast. We've got to take out our igniter and our capacitor that were for the pulse start, for the high pressure sodium. So this kit comes all together, all the guts swap out, just have to unhook the leads for the mogul base, and we're done. Okay, now we're going to turn around and put our pulse start ballast back in this year. Again, same thing. How the ballast wires up are all on the leads of the ballast. Now, there is an issue after you come in after 10 years. Guess what? That plastic sticker is gone. Okay, so that you need to know. Okay. Go ahead and get him slid into here, get ready, but we don't want to really put this cover on because we need to read the wiring diagram. So we're just going to get him out of the way, get him ready, moved. Okay, we want to do the same thing, get our igniter and our capacitor. Again, our capacitors, if you look, they have 17, they have the microfarads. So this is basically a 350 volt 17 UF 17 microfarad capacitor plus or minus 3%. The one that was in the high pressure sodium was a 35 microfarad plus or minus 3% at 240. Every capacitor is different. You have to match the exact cap up with what was in there. Okay, so get the cap. We get our igniter, which again, igniters for metal halide aren't as common, but this being a pulse start, it has it. Okay, tighten it down. Read our wiring diagram. Okay, our igniter goes blue to blue, so our blue to blue goes the same. And it's the same with the red. Off of the lamp lead is red coming off of the thing. It says lamp. You're going to have your red off your igniter. So this is the same as a high pressure sodium setup, and then your black feeding your lamp all go together. Okay, now we got two commons coming off of here. We're going to take one common to here then. Okay, so we'll do one of our commons to the lamp. Okay, we got to find our cap leads. Looks like our capacitor leads come off, so there should be two cap leads. There's one, and there's probably the other with this line, I think. There's one. What's he? He's a cap 2. Okay, so both cap leads have to be hooked up. Now that leaves us with our power leads left. Okay, so we have our neutral coming off our neutral that comes off of the igniter. I'm going to tie in with the neutral feeding off that cap lead. Actually, doesn't matter, but That's just the way I'm doing it today. So that leaves us down here. We basically have our remainder of wires. Okay, so we have, this should be our common. Yep, see common. And then this is our .208 volt is the purple. You can barely see it. And 240 volt, 120 volt, and then this is 277. So depending on what type you hook up again, what comes behind it, what decides what voltage source you're going to hook up to. Okay, and we can tie him down, get him set in place. Let's get our cord. We'll wire him up and test him out and make sure he works right. Okay, so our power feeding the fixture, we're going to hook up to our 120 volt because that's what we're plugging into right now. So we got to get our grounds together. Our neutral. And our 120 volt common. So here's our black. We got to stick with our 120. Let's make sure this says 120, and it does. Now we're good to hook it up. Okay, make sure again all your wires have caps or insulators on the ends. See how the 277, we had to put a wire nut on it. Get all your wires down and underneath. Get our covers and put back in place. Okay. We'll install our pulse start bulb and we'll plug them in. Okay, same reaction. You see how long it takes? It's going to take, again, 5 to 10 minutes for this to get fully illuminated. Okay, we'll let it go. I want to see it when we unplug it. Okay. You unplug a metal halide bulb, exactly how it looks when it's going off. So you can't see it that much compared to the regular molten. When you do them hooked up, they're molten when they've been going for a little while. That's how they end up black.